The Wendigo is out there, and it's hungry. The Algonquin-speaking people of the northeast United States and Canada have stories of the Wendigo, a spirit that haunts the cold, desolate woods in winter. Legends say that this spirit can possess you if you're ever too greedy or taste human flesh. Once it's in you, you'll suffer insatiable hunger and crave the flesh of others. Never satisfied, you'll start to change. Your skin will pull tight over your bones. Your fingers and limbs will elongate. The more you eat, the more you grow. And the more you grow, the hungrier you'll get. It will never stop. That is the life of the Wendigo. For hundreds of years, these stories have been passed down, a creepy moral tale to keep kids in line. Or is there more to these tales? Could there be some truth to these stories of cannibals in the woods? There are some historical facts that point to yes, there might be something or someone out in the dark watching you, waiting. These stories always start off in the cold of winter. It was an imposing time of the year, when starvation and freezing to death was a reality for most in the past. It was, and is, a time of darkness, of the unknown, of death. It's a time of survival, of doing what it takes to make it to the spring. What would you be willing to do? This true story takes us to the frozen forests of Alberta, Canada, in 1879. Swift Runner was a popular man in his community. He worked as a trapper and a guide to support his wife and 6 kids. For the time, Swift was a giant of a man at 6 feet tall. He would always stand out in a crowd. But as happens to people on occasion, he became a little too fond of the bottle. To make things worse, he was known to get a little rowdy when he drank, and he ended up losing his job, along with a few friends. Swift decided to get a fresh start and move his large family, including his mother-in-law and brother, out into the woods. There they lived off the land, until that fateful winter came. That spring, Swift Runner came down from the homestead back into town. His family was not within sight, and when those old friends of the town inquired, Swift told them the devastating news that they all starved to death out there in the snow over the long winter. There was one problem with that story. Swift looked a little too healthy to have gone without food over the winter. Why hadn't he succumbed to starvation? Others had not had a hard time hunting that winter. Why couldn't Swift find food? He was a trapper, wasn't he? Then there was the nightmares. Swift would wake up screaming every night, covered in sweat. He would never talk about what happened. The town at this time was already suspicious of him, but when Swift Runner was caught leading a group of school children into the woods, they had had enough. After arresting Swift, the police led him back to his cabin in the woods. There they found a horrifying scene. Hundreds of bones were strewn around the cabin and the surrounding area. Some were even cracked open and the marrow drained from the bones. In the kitchen, the investigators found a pot full of human fat. That's when Swift Runner admitted what really happened. The winter was bad, and his youngest daughter had died of starvation, just as he said. Out of desperation, Swift ate just a little of his daughter. After doing this, he said he started to change. He felt he was possessed by the spirit of the Wendigo. He described a burning pain all over his body and a hunger that could only be met by one thing. He then proceeded to murder and eat his entire family. A court of law did not believe Swift Runner's story, and he became the first official prisoner executed by the government of Alberta, Canada. He was hanged on December 20th, 1879. He went to his grave insisting that the spirit of the Wendigo made him do it. Later, people of the time diagnosed Swift Runner with what they termed Wendigo psychosis, a pseudo-psychological disorder described as the feeling that they are possessed by the spirit of a Wendigo. Symptoms include violent dreams and a compulsion to cannibalism. He wasn't the last thought to have this disorder, and he also wasn't the first. That brings us to the story of Jack Fiddler, the Wendigo hunter. Jack was born in the forest of the Upper Seventh Rivers in what is now northwestern Ontario, Canada. He was a respected chief and shaman of his peoples, and Jack had a specialty: hunting wendigos. It is said that no normal man could kill a wendigo, especially after the wendigo spirit settles in. They're super fast and unusually strong. It takes someone special to hunt them, someone like Jack Fiddler. Jack claimed to have defeated 14 wendigos in total. Some he had to track down, but others would turn themselves over to Jack, feeling the change coming on, and ask to be euthanized. One of these peoples was even Jack's own brother. Jack's people, the Suckers, were among the only indigenous people in North America living a traditional manner with almost no government intervention on legal and religious matters. This all changed in early 1907. 2 members of the Northwest Mounted Police were traveling through the area and heard the stories of Jack Fiddler, and how he would euthanize the very sick and the old to prevent wendigos. Looking to expand Canadian law, Jack was promptly arrested and sentenced to death for murder. On September 30th, Jack Fiddler escaped captivity during a walk outside. He hanged himself nearby and was found dead later in the day. Without their most prominent leader, the people of the Upper Seven Rivers had no choice but to accept government rule. The Wendigo is rooted in the history of North America's people and past. Its legend still haunts the cold winter forests and hills, always hungry, always hunting. Be it a strange pseudo-psychological disorder or an actual evil living spirit, the reality of starvation and desperation lives in all of us, just under the surface. Maybe the Wendigo is already inside all of us, waiting for the moment that the power turns off and the food to run out. Comment down below with your Wendigo stories. Hit the like and subscribe button, and as always, this is Broadcaster 7 saying, are you programmed to receive the night signal?